This is my 1991 Honda CR125 and I bought it from Facebook Marketplace without even viewing it. The bike was in a terrible condition and didn't even run. When I got it home, there was only one way to save it, and that was a full nut and bolt rebuild.
In the last episode, we made a start on rebuilding its gearbox.
When I say a full nut and bolt rebuild, this truly is one. With new gearbox bearings, oil seals, rebuilt gear set, along with rebuilt gear selector, and rebuilt kickstart, this was full on.
But we still have some way to go yet before this engine is finished.
In fact, I did have to backtrack a little to torque up the gear drum bolt I remembered I left hand tight. And also, thanks to your comments, I slapped a little oil on the bearings in the process.
Now in the last episode, I realised I'd forgotten to check if this gearbox was actually changing gear. You see, I'm a little bit worried about this.
Because when I collected the bike, the gear peg was sticky and just felt terrible.
So as it stands, we should be in neutral. I can rotate one of the counter shafts and this one remains still. So we should be in neutral. I should be able to go down into first. Yeah, and now that is turning. I can't hold that still. Let's try and go back up to neutral. And there we go, back into neutral. Second gear. And then we're in second gear. Do you know what? I do need to state, for the record, I have never rebuilt a gearbox before. And I've effectively repaired that one.
So what a relief. This means we can continue with installing this clutch arm, and then we can proceed with installing these bolts which secure the case together. Before we refit this magneto, I felt it was best we give it a little spruce up using a bit of GT85. Now look at this crusty flywheel. If you remember how difficult this was to come off, well, that tells you how corroded it was. So using my bench grinder and taking extra precaution to wear my safety goggles, I use a wire wheel to remove all of the rust. Then we just finished off this side, making sure to fit this new bush.
Right, I am a little bit worried now because this clutch arm, how does that activate the clutch? Because if we come around to the clutch side, which obviously we are still yet to install, but how does that arm activate anything this side of the engine? Also, a little bit worried about the fact I've got this hole in the engine. So I'm wondering, have I missed something crucial in the gearbox? It would just be my luck, wouldn't it?
So it was best I read the workshop manual.
Thankfully, all I'm missing is this rod which goes through the counter shaft and it will hook up to the clutch arm. Regarding that hole, that is a hole for a breather hose. Okay, next up will be the installation of this top end. Look at that loveliness. I took it to a specialist. The specialist has had to bore the top end out because there was so many scores. The scores were so deep. This is the original piston. It's a 53.95, and this is the new piston. It's a 53.97. This barrel has a complex power valve system, and it opens and closes these plastic flaps. The idea behind that power valve system is to boost the low end torque. It's a 125cc 2-stroke, so it will probably bog a little. Those valves will close at low engine RPM, give you that increase in power, and as you build up the RPM, they will open to give you that spike in performance when you're screaming its nuts off.
Right, so before we go ahead and install a barrel, we need to check the ring gap tolerance. With the piston ring placed into the barrel and then squared off using the new piston, we can take our feeler gauge and check the ring gap. In this case, we are 0.50 millimeters, which, according to the workshop manual, puts us within spec. So we can proceed with installing the piston and ring. I really should be using 2-stroke oil on the top end, but I didn't have any to hand, though a small amount of transmission oil won't do any harm. Now when we place the barrel over the piston, we need to make sure we don't twist the barrel left to right in the process. We also need to make sure that the ring gap remains in this groove in the piston. That is so the ring doesn't spin on the piston.
Okay, so some of these head bolts, I need a special tool to get onto these to torque them up quickly. They require a torque setting of 20 newton meters. Now I can probably get close to it with feel, but I'd rather get the tool and make sure that they're all done properly. So I will return to those.
Now that the barrel is installed, we can fit the reed valves. And next up is the carb.
Okay, so I'm about to install a clutch. I say about to install a clutch. Well, I can't install a clutch because this clutch basket, which I've had to purchase, Well, it's missing a crucial part of the basket. It's missing the gear that's supposed to attach to the rear of the basket.
The gear was machine pressed onto the original basket, and so I had to get an engineer to swap these over for me. In the meantime, I thought I could give this flywheel cover a little glow up.
Okay, so I've left the flywheel cover to dry overnight. This is what it's looking like. I'm not 100% happy with it. It still looks a little bit tatty, but it's clean. And maybe with the scratches and the gouges in the plastic, maybe it adds to the authenticity of the bike's age. Now then, I've been and got the clutch basket from the engineer. And this is the original basket with the lovely damage. Can you see there? So that's been removed from this kickstart gear. We've now got the Mitaka clutch basket pressed in there and all torqued up to specification. So we can now proceed to install the clutch.
While I fit this clutch, I'd love to let you know that you can help support this passion project of mine by simply becoming a Patron member. For as little as £5 a month, your membership will not only help with all that is involved with restoring and helping us bring this and many old forgotten bikes back to life, but it will also give you the chance to win selected project bikes that feature on the channel. And so, please do check out the link in the description, and I just want to thank those of you who do support Bikes of Rye. Your support fuels our dedication here, and I am ever so grateful. Right, so now this clutch basket and hub are installed, I need to read the manual I never read to get the torque requirement for the nut. There is a range given for this torque setting, and I fancy going for 60 Newton meters. The clutch plates now slide in. And this clutch is looking a damn sight better than the one that came out. I must not forget this clutch push rod. And so now we can install a clutch hub plate. Next, we need to prepare this engine case, and thanks to your comments in the previous upload, I am now applying grease to the oil seals. This plastic gear is part of the water pump. And this arm is part of the power valve that I mentioned earlier on. It is what opens and closes those plastic valves on the cylinder. Okay, so now this case is ready, we pop these dowel pins in. And fit the clutch case. Then the clutch cover. Then finally, we hook up the power valve arm to the head. And just look at that engine. How great does this engine look so far? Painted with new engine bolts and gaskets, it has come a long way to what it previously looked like.
So that's going to be all from me in this upload, but be sure to hit the subscribe button for the next upload because we will start to rebuild the chassis. But for now, I want to thank you for watching and I hope to see you on the next one real soon. See you later.